by the grace of the Most High. Right now, we're all in rehab. This lockdown thing, it reminds me of rehab. It reminds me of rehab.
You can say that if you want to.
You have to go under certain discipline and certain rules, and right now, rehab is a place where you start looking to yourself. And I know, during this lockdown, a whole lot of people look into themselves, and I'm sure a lot of them are determined to be better people, when the lockdown is past, or, no matter what. So, it's a time for, get spiritually strong, mentally strong. It's time for cleansing. Rehab is all about cleansing and purification, detoxifying, detox from all the poisonous substances one used to take, whether it's alcohol and all kind of drugs and pills and things, and also it could be detoxifying from anger. Anger management, could be detoxifying from sexual addiction or gambling. So we have all kinds of things which we're going through rehab right now. So this rehab thing is more than what meets the eye. It's not just about drink and drugs. It's about rehabilitation of the mind and the spirit and our behavior in all different ways, so that we become better people, so we have a better community, one of love and unity, one of harmony, one of respect, one of compassion, for one another, instead of being fearful of each other, can't trust each other. We have to done with these things. They are the spirits of our ancestors have been through so much. They went through so great, terrible trials and tribulation that some of us wouldn't even be able to bear. And I ask for the Most High to give us that kind of strength the spirits of our ancestors had to go through the hell that they went through. So we owe it to them to live better than what we're doing right now. They never went through all that and all those rebellions and all the lives that they laid down their blood for I and I to be here today. And we have to do better than this, brothers and sisters. They didn't give their blood, sweat and tears in vain to see us killing one another and backbiting each other and not trusting one another, being divided from each other, fragmented, families fragmented, community fragmented. Even in my own self, I was fragmented for many years. It's nice to be whole again, be a whole person. That's what holy means, spirit, mind, and body in balance, in harmony with each other, instead of the inner conflict that goes on. I know there's a lot of fear out there right now. People fear right now. I got on the bus on my way here, and there were two women, and they just ran. So I went to sit down. There was nowhere else to sit. The bus had a whole heap of people on the bus, so you can't keep no distance again on the buses. Whole heap of people out there, whole heap of cars on the road. I noticed that even the air quality has dropped since the cars now come out in full force now. So let us think about where we go from here. From this lockdown business, brothers and sisters.
Yeah, I got to ask you something before I fly off. How did this thing affect you? This lockdown thing, yeah? 'Cause I remember we're going through we had the second month now or something like that. But when it first started, the first 2 weeks, yeah, that part there, 'cause I know what I went through. So how did the first 2 weeks affect you?
Well, I was grateful for it because I realized that I'd been running myself down to the ground, sometimes working all up to about 18 hours a day, at least 6 days a week, or sometimes, 24/7, and I was grateful for the rest, and I must say at the same time, it reminded me of when I was in prison, and I said, well, this is just similar to being in an open prison. Only thing is we don't have no prison guards or anything like that. So really and truly, and it just give me a time for have a relationship with our Creator, the Most High, so we got into prayers, and all them way there. Me join out some different prayer groups and things like that, and reason not only about on the Bible, but we also reason about what's happening in the families. Some people already had people sick with this COV business already. Yeah, so for me, it was a welcome break because working myself too hard, to be honest with you. I needed a rest.
Seen. Okay. All right. But for those who had businesses to run, are the hairdressers now, we're going to talk a little thing about it still, because the woman them find a way. Because remember the hairdressers and thing, yeah, they our women them like to get some of them like to get their weaves and all of this. I'm not bond them, but we just talk how I see things are going, you know what I mean? And it's like the hairdressers have to make a living. Barber shop and them places have to make a living with their customers every day. Now you cannot, them say you're social distancing, that means they cannot be doing nobody's hair again. But I see that the younger girls them, they still somehow getting their hair done, getting their weave done, getting their nails done.
Oh, yeah.
They're still getting on point. Like they need to realize this thing is a sign for everyone to change, to kind of become natural, to come back to oneself instead of to what Babylon or Egypt has dictated for us to be and for us to buy and for us to wear. Yeah, for so many years. This little break here is a sign, especially the ones that go church. I have not seen so much people in a church with fars here, fars near, as far as I mean, this time, because there's no church, you can't do it. No fellowship. So it's just a sign that we're not looking at it in a negative way, but in a positive way, that it's time for all of us to get back within ourselves and know ourselves and stop being the way Babylon want us to be. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's time for us to stop that, you know what I mean? So this is why we're talking the thing today, you know what I mean? And we're going to talk about the book as well, because we're talking about rehab, which some of us are going through a rehab right now. And don't realize it's a rehab, you know what I mean? So don't try and fight the thing and try everything you can to make sure, I've got to get my hair done, I've got to get my nails done. You don't got to do anything. You got to just stop and be the way the Most High created you. Just for this time here. You know what I mean? That's what I've learned in this thing. Just step back and try to get back to how the Most High set the thing in the first place. Because we're gone far from how we're supposed to be. We're going to let us straight. Going to wrap up and get involved in a Sodom and Gomorrah side by side and don't say nothing. You know what I mean? Things are happening in the world that 20 years ago there would have been an uproar. Now it's accepted for the things that we've accepted and been conditioned to. So this little break here, know yourself in this time. Because when the break is done, what you are that's how you're going to be. You know what I mean? And the Bible tells them, so if they're going to be righteous, let them be righteous still. If they're going to be filthy, let them be filthy still. You know what I mean? This period that we're going through, maybe it's something for us to check ourselves as well. Reshuffle. We say some wrong things. Some of us fall out with some people along the way. But, you know what I mean? Don't be wrong and strong. Do what is right. And just get yourself back to how we're supposed to be, If you don't know how, then just work with 10 commandments and that's it. Simple, if you don't know how.
Yes, we have to work with love, because this is a great opportunity to learn to love ourselves, to connect with that love within, the power within, the spirit within, the God spirit within us that give us life, to have a relationship, with our higher self. Our lower self is the flesh, and the lower self, the flesh, it want this, it want that, and it cry out if it can't get it, and it always a complain and always finding fault and moaning and groaning and crying. With the higher self, regardless of whatever go on, it accept everything, any situation, lockdown, we accept it. When it's raining, we accept it. Sun shining, we accept it. And we make the best of every given moment that we are in the present moment. So we got a call coming in. How do we? Yes, okay. Yes, brother.
Yeah, I forgot to do that.
Blessed love. Blessed love. If can you please call back if you've gone off the line, please, because it wasn't connected at the time in order to answer it in time. So I hope you're listening, and please try again. Yes, brothers and sisters, well, we got our brother Clive from Turas, in the studio, he's come to preview our book, From Rehab to Life. It was published a couple weeks ago. Yes, we have some technical activity going on here, but we will get it right. So.
Yes, greetings. Good evening, family. Yeah, it's good to be in the house on this warm and pleasant day.
Once again.
Yeah, sorry for my
anything to do
lateness.
with your mobile phone?
Yeah, I've been going through rehab to life. And I know for myself, when I put my little spin on it, it's a place that we're forced or we're being subjected to presently, in that we're going through a form of rehabilitation. So I hope you've managed or you're coping. Like myself, it's good to be out. And insofar as the challenges that we face, it is no doubt a time for reflection, looking at our inner strength, our spirituality, those things that we've been denied over the past, 2 months now. How much do they really matter in our present lives? And again, from an Afrocentric perspective, what is the signs showing us insofar as our own well-being? Who can we trust? Is it a case that wearing a mask is going to make a difference? Or is it that because of the fact that they want to be able to have identification, that the mask is going to pose a problem in hindering their surveillance? So we are where we are, and no doubt we're inviting of you to phone in and to add to our debate and to find your voices.
Yes, this is all about find your voice, in respect of our, great loving brother, beloved brother Dougie. Yes, his legacy continues, with Bless Radio. We're from Rehab to Life Foundation. I'm Tamara Gabriel, and my book, From Rehab to Life, has just been published, and we're going to have a preview of that book, with our beloved guest, Brother Clive from Turas, and I'm sure he'll be able to tell you a bit more about From Turas, if you don't mind, Brother Clive.
Yeah, concept Turas in its full perception or vision, it's about real active, structured, supported solutions. These are principles that we've learned over the past 15 years or so, working around young people coming from a raving background, musical background, and the acronym in itself being provocative, I had us to also revisit and look on it from a spiritual perspective, and for that I came up with WRATH, which represents our well-being, a relationship, attitude where we place our trust, particularly in this time, and our hopes and aspirations. So in order to justify or to answer the critics who say it was a derogatory term, I was to visit the book and come up with the acronym RAF, which is dealing with the moral high ground, or taking that moral compass. Yeah, we do have a website, but I'll give that out to you later on. It's called conceptoras@gmail.com, and we've got an ongoing program of development, which you will find out more about. But for now, obviously, we're anxious to get your contribution from what's happening out there. I've been not assigned, but I took it as a pleasure to take upon myself to look at from rehab to life, but that my brother Tamara Gabriel had recently released, and it was a pleasure for myself, and I've been going through it for the past couple of days. I've not actually gone through it completely, but considering where we are presently in society on lockdown, we effectively are in rehab, and we're having to make an adjustment to face the world again, as they would say, because they say it's not going to be as we were when we were put on lockdown.
Absolutely.
Which was self-inflicted.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't really know what to say, because if you follow all that's being said out there, you don't know who to believe, who to trust. But what it is showing us is that we need to look within ourselves, because within ourselves are the said same solutions to which we're looking for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're not to put trust in government to a certain extent, and in churches, because to a certain extent you say, where are they? Because they've gone out on the same social platform, rather than standing on ground to get the truth out of society as to whether this virus is real, or, as an example, 5G is a problem. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but again, it'd be good to hear what Joe Public is presently thinking.
Yes, absolutely. If you could call us on 079 444 31366. Yes, rehab is a great time to get to know yourself. It's a spiritual journey. We're on a spiritual journey. We're spirits in a material world. And lockdown was an opportunity for us to connect with that spirit. Because when the body lays down, the spirit lives on and moves into the spiritual realm, which is invisible to the eye. Although some of us are gifted, which we call mediums or clairvoyants, who can see the spirits of our ancestors. I've always wished from a little boy that I could see such marvelous things like that, what other people cannot see. But at the same time, we're talking about spirituality. This is the best time to get to know yourself spiritually, because, as my brother was saying, relying on the government, relying on man, relying on your boss, relying on your wife or your children or whatever, your friends, is relying in vain, brothers and sisters. There's only one to rely on, is the one that never fails, and that is our Creator, the Most High, Yah. Or whatever name you wish to call, the higher power, whatever, God, whatever. Somebody would say Amon Ra or whatever. But brothers and sisters, let us connect with the power within, because we are very powerful, immeasurably powerful, and we've got to tap into that power. This is why we're suffering, because we're not tapping into our spiritual being. We're relying too much upon what do I look like. I've got to put on brand names, or I need a car, this and that. I got to fix up the house. All about fixing up ourselves, brothers and sisters. Our spiritual health, is our top priority, because when we're sick spiritually, we become sick mentally and physically and emotionally. And so once we get spiritually fit, mentally, we will also become well. Blessed love, brothers and sisters, and like I said, this is a spiritual journey, and this lockdown is a time where we can reflect and go within ourselves and be honest with ourselves. It's like having taken a personal inventory on ourselves, where we went wrong and what we did right, and so on and so forth, with the aim to do the right thing so the right thing happens. If I was a white wife beater, I'd have to say, darling, please forgive me. My God, imagine getting beaten every day under these circumstances. Please forgive me. God help me. I'm never going to beat you again. Children, come round. Listen, in front of your mother, in front of you all, I'm never going to beat your mama again. I'd rather go for a walk around the block 10 times, even for 10 days before I step into the house. When I step back in the house, I have to step back with peace in my heart. The same thing with all other things. People, who are going through anger. Not only anger, but also going through maybe things like gambling, for example. They realize, my God, they're going to have to stop this gambling. Otherwise, they're going to lose their house, they're going to lose their job, they're going to lose this, they're going to lose that. There's all different things happening out there, brothers and sisters. We all have a self-destructive trait. And this is what we need to address, with honesty. And that's what we do in rehab. We look at ourselves and at our whole life, and we see where we went wrong, and we admit it. We have to admit it before we can get over it. Anyway, Brother Clive, do you have anything in particular you wanted to talk about on this book?
Yeah, well, I was fascinated from the offset when I first got hold of the title, and you've sent, I think it was a WhatsApp, you sent the image to me in WhatsApp, and my initial thoughts or thinking, without having turned the pages, was that's exactly the situation that we are in now. And I actually went on the internet to find out the definition of rehabilitation or rehabilitation. And it's the action of restoring someone to health or normal life through training and the therapy after imprisonment. And I'm looking to ourselves presently, as I say, we are in fact in prison, albeit we've locked ourselves away. Mm-hmm. But then how are we? And the government doesn't presently have the answer as to how they're going to take us out of the situation of lockdown or confinement, which they've put us in. And there are those of us whose incomes have been taken away, and our responsibilities that goes with those incomes insofar as paying a mortgage or generally making we say provisions for your household. Yeah, everything right now is on lockdown. Yeah, but my fascination, having now turned the pages and to see and to be able to have shared your journey, because one of the first thing that came to my mind when I opened the book, and I think I went through the first couple of chapters, was, is this real? Because what I was seeing was somewhat frightening, but it's a journey nonetheless that I'm fortunate to be able to see the end. And now, it's a case, how did I survive that journey?
By the grace of the Most High. That's why we have to go within and connect with the Spirit within us. Bring us through anything, fire, bring us through all kind of, trials and tribulations.
Okay, and with that then said, having survived, it's like the other end of this so-called virus. You've got the immune system to deal with the rehab that you've been through, and for that reason I'm gathering that's why you've pursued along the journey of rehab, from rehab to life, and you want to share that now with the recipients out there who are listening, who might be going through some similar journey, because all our journeys are different, but where we have the experience is for us to pass that on and to impact. And it's very much the same again with our present situation. What we're going through in lockdown is to strengthen us. So those kids that you never had any ideas as to how to manage, if you have not been able to manage them, then you're going to need medication because you've not been prepared for this journey. But nonetheless, because it's forced upon you, you had to deal with it.
Absolutely.
Because they prevented help from coming round.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, you should now be strengthened because you needed to be strengthened. And at the end of it all, when all has failed, we look within for that deeper sense of help.
Absolutely, brother. At the end of the day, I know there's a lot of people out there who's probably resorted to drinking abusively since the lockdown started. There'll be people out there, I'm sure, who's resorted to trying drugs, dabbling with drugs, crack cocaine or whatever. And probably some of you have found yourself hooked. God only knows. And from Rehab to Life Foundation, we're here to help you all, brothers and sisters. Or you might find yourself resorting to violence when you wasn't a violent man ever really, and suddenly you've become violent as well. So instead of going in yourself, we find a lot of us going out of ourselves, pandering to the flesh. The flesh wants this, the flesh wants that. And this is a time, brothers and sisters, where we just got to get honest with ourselves. This is what the lockdown is all about, reaching the truth within. And the truth within is the spirit of our Creator. Because without that spirit within us and that spirit of love, it's a spirit of love, it's a spirit of peace, it's a spirit of forgiveness, it's a spirit of compassion, it's a spirit of honesty, it's a spirit of beauty, it's a spirit of charity, it's a spirit of patience and of perseverance and endurance. It's a spirit of courage, it's a spirit of wisdom, knowledge and understanding, Yes, it's a spirit of dominion, power, and victory over all death, darkness, and evil. That spirit is within us, brothers and sisters. So really and truly, lockdown has been a great opportunity to connect with that. And if you haven't done so, please do so. Just be honest with yourself. You don't have to read the Bible. Just go in yourself and be truthful. And that's how we grow. That's how we become better people. But when we're dishonest, we cannot grow, so therefore this is why we have a lot of adults in age, but really emotionally they're only about 15, 16, 17, because they've stopped growing, because they've always been so dishonest with themselves that they just cannot grow, making excuses for this, making excuses for that. Like I myself, from Rehab to Life, I remember the days when I made excuses about the fact that, I had to go to rob, for to pay my rent, after being thrown out of the house and so forth, but I didn't have to do that, but I was dishonest with myself, and further down the line when I ended up in drug and alcohol addiction, I would say, anybody who's in their right minds would take some kind of drug or some kind of alcoholic drink or something, because it's such a wicked world. There's so many cruel people out there. It's you need to anesthetize yourself, in this cruel world out there, and all that sort of nonsense, which just kept me drinking and kept me drugging. Once again, I lied to myself. There is cruelty in the world, but there's also a lot of goodness, a lot of love in the world. Regardless of all the all the destruction that's going on. In fact, this lockdown has brought a lot of people together. Neighbor for the first time is looking on their neighbor to find out what do you want? Do you need any help? People are actually volunteering their services to bring food to the elderly and the disabled and people who can't get out and about. You're making sure that even the children get fed, or the elderly get fed, or whatever. So, or they get their medication brought to them. So it's caused us to, become more connect with our loving self, our higher self, the God self. And, yeah. How do we go?
Just slide it.
Hello. Hello. Can I hear you? Who's calling? I can't hear a thing. Huh? Hello, don't go away. Just stay on the line. Yeah. Yes, the controller's just trying to sort this.
Hi, Carla. How you doing?
Hello?
Hi. Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh.
Yeah, go on. Just continue talking. They went off.
What's going on?
They don't want to say nothing. 6, 7, 8. Yeah, they don't want to say nothing.
Yeah, caller, we've missed your call. Can you?
No, they locked off, They didn't know. Maybe they didn't want to be live, but they locked off.
Okay, brothers and sisters, we're having some technical challenges here with the live connection. But we're winners. We don't give up, We never give up.
pt3 query.
By the grace of the Most High. Yes, please call back,
Once again.
caller. Please call back. Do call back.
Just continue the conversation.
Yes, well, I'm just going to read a little piece from this book here, which is the book that I wrote. This book I dedicated to, to the world, because it's something which really and truly we all can learn from. You don't have to be a drug addict, alcoholic, or a criminal, or a violent person, or ex-violent person. This has a message for everyone. And this is something here. It's in the first chapter. It's page 14. The bottom the bottom paragraph. It says, "I remember catching crabs and crayfish in the river opposite our home, and carefully walking through Papillon Pierre's cocoa plantation, watching out for snakes slithering through the cocoa leaves that carpeted the ground. Life was a wonderful adventure. That same spirit of adventure found me racing down the mountain road on a homemade go-kart, for which I received serious grief from Mammy, and an abrupt end to any further expeditions of that sort. Neddy Joe, my friend and elder from next door, got a beating that could be heard 100 yards away. He never rode a go-kart again. I'm sure such loving and firm parenting saved our lives." How about that, brothers and sisters? Do you agree with that, brother?
Yeah, I've obviously been through the first, 20 chapters I've read so far. The book took me back to my youth days in Jamaica. I remember the pleasures coming from a village community of going down to the river, catching crayfish, having to do those chores, as well as to learn to basically fend for myself in the way of survival skills. And it was really refreshing to share that part of your journey, knowing that we connected back to the West Indies, and then the anger and the frustration that again you shared when you was taken away from your parents or your grandparents and brought to this foreign land where
Indeed.
it was very hostile. Yeah,
Indeed.
but I'm not sure as to, was this your first effort insofar as writing a book, or?
I'm actually a writer. I've written short stories and things like that in the past, and but it's the first time that I actually completed a whole book like that in that form. There, in fact, I was writing a book called Born of Rape, actually, but that book never got completed because I left it in for safekeeping in a brother's house, which turned into a crack house, actually. And when I went there to collect the book and other bits and pieces, poems and so on that I'd written, it was all literature, just a bag full of literature. And when I went back there, he said it wasn't there, and I was clean and sober. I was recovering at that time, you know. I was still in rehab, basically, and that was the biggest mistake I ever made, because going to that house caused me to relapse. You know, I said to myself, I set myself up to fail, you know, and I'm saying it with all honesty. Although in myself I says, well, I'll stand outside the front door. I'll say, I don't drink and take drugs and all that. Just bring me my stuff and I'll go. But the guy said, just wait here, I'll be back in a minute. And then when he called me back, when he called me again, he said, come. And I went in the back room, and next thing you knew, I was smoking crack and drinking alcohol. And by rights, I should have brought someone along with me, you know, so that wouldn't have happened. And,
But you could well have corrupted them as well.
Well, you know, when I say someone with me, two is stronger than one.
Oh,
You
well,
know, yes, I do believe that, because when I left prison, after I swore to God that I was a drug addict, alcoholic, and so on, and I said, God, please help me. You know, he actually, by the time I left prison, you know, I had to go to rehab straight from the prison. No halfway house. And I was honest enough by then to actually talk to a prison drug alcohol worker and told him, listen, I'm not confident of going to that rehab on my own, straight from prison. I think I'll probably end up in the off license. Not probably, I'll end up in the off license, having a celebratory drink of champagne, saying, yeah, and next thing you know, I'll end up in the crack house, and next thing you know, I'm back on the street again, committing crime to get money for crack. And so they volunteered to accompany me to rehab on that day. So I got there safe. The guy's name was Michael, and I think that he reminds me of Michael, Archangel Michael, you know, was with me that day, made sure I got to rehab safe and started my spiritual journey that I needed to get to where I am today.
Yeah.
Yes, brother. But, you know, from that excerpt from that book, though, what the point I was trying to make was that the beating, I mean, there's a lot of stories, there's a lot of
abuse.
People are for it or against it, you know, and but like I said in my book, that I do believe it saved our lives, because had we continued going up that mountain and going downhill on that go-kart with all these big lorries, and you know they drive back home, you know, it was a very dangerous situation to be in. I would say that beating was justified on that occasion, because otherwise it would have happened again.
Yeah, I truly believe that when we do reflect now back
Yes.
on our journey, having survived, it is a case that it's taught us invaluable lessons, lessons which has equipped us now in order to look back and to use our experience as examples as to, despite all the trials and tribulations, if you have that will, your purpose will be fulfilled. It's to be able to humble ourselves, therefore, and to know that whether it was that we were wrong or whether it was that we were right, we were put in that particular place at that particular time, not of our own choosing,
No.
even though we made choices that didn't help our situation. Because again, one thing looking at the going through the books, some of the chapters, it was evident that you had choices at every given time, but you were so conscious as to your weaknesses that you asked for that additional support. So you was conscious at the time, and your willpower wasn't strong enough to take you, but you needed that additional help. And even though, again, these help has come forward, you've taken them for a while, but there was always another force that was trying to pull you the other way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So towards the latter part, I came that there were certain principles that you seem to have applied. I think they numbered up to 12. I'm not sure if there was.
Yes, the 12 steps. Yes.
Oh, there are 12 steps. Well, I mean, that come towards the end, and I haven't actually read the end part, but the first half of the book to what I had read, and I mean, it did engulf me to make me want to keep reading. So again, you, the listeners out there, I would encourage you, obviously, to get hold of the book as I've done. And whilst you are in rehab, learn, read, and to find out within yourself that you need this inner strength, which is what you now having to do to reflect and to have the confidence also, like my brother here, to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And it's for that reason why now he's honest and open to share his experience, then say, to further strengthen us. And from what I've seen, because I've obviously names have been mentioned, I mean, Chicken, Four Aces, all these places that even I have gone places in my life, but from what I've seen you've been through, and the caliber of people that has been part of your life also, your story is definitely worth reading. And it need to be interpreted and understood to the max as to how it's going to strengthen us now. Because without a doubt, we are in rehab, and we need to look now as to how we're going to get out. So the latter part, those steps, obviously, which you've been through, I could see the strength, and then the latter part where you then turn to your spirituality.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe you could share that with our listeners out there as to...
Yes, brothers and sisters. Well, you know, the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, in fact, of Overeating Anonymous, all the fellowships to do with addiction, not all of them, but many of them use the 12 steps. And the 12 steps recognizes that there's only one authority, and that's our higher power, which we choose to call God. You know, is the only authority, the higher power. And the first, and all the steps are spiritual, from the very first one. Because without that first step, you can't make the second step. You're not on the road to recovery until you make the first step, which is we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction of drugs and alcohol, and that our lives had become unmanageable. And many people in rehab still had their homes and their husbands and their wives and children and their jobs and a fat bank account and a house or two or three or more, you know, thriving, prosperous businesses and so on, and got all their friends. And they said, well, no, they can't admit to this step because their lives are still manageable. You know, they've still got all the trappings of wealth and all that and that image of doing well. You know, but it's only on further reflection within themselves that they saw how close that they got to losing everything, because they were on the verge of losing their job. The drug and addiction and alcohol addiction or whatever addiction it was driving them wedged between them and their wives, and between them and their children, between they and their higher power than themselves, between they and their friends at work, and even the job that they are doing. You know, it becomes a conflict. And when they get to realize that, well, they were struggling to keep it together, and so on and so forth, then they admit yes. And from we become honest, honesty now becomes a bit easier to go on to the next second step, which was, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves, could restore us to sanity. Now, I myself personally, I didn't agree with that step, the second step. I said, because I'm not insane. I know what I've been doing. I know I wasn't doing the right thing, drinking, taking drugs abusively, being violent and being dishonest and so forth and so forth. I knew what I was doing, but I did it. I knew if I did this, I could end up in jail, and I did at times, and so I'm not insane. And then the counselor pointed out to me that insanity is something that, you keep repeating over and over again, expecting a different result. And that truth, I bowed immediately to that truth, because I said, wow. Because to me, before then, someone who was insane was someone who was frothing at the mouth, eyes bulging out their head, and ready to chop and stab or shoot at anybody on sight, without any reason, without any provocation or anything like that. That was my idea of a mad person. I realize today that, a lot of us are insane. We're wearing Savile Row suits, have millions or whatever in the bank or whatever, and we are professionals and we're doing a great job at work and all the rest of it. And yet, we are insane because there are things that we're doing over and over and over and over again and expecting a different result, and it doesn't work.
Okay, on that, I would like to probably ask a question then. In life, where is it, would you say, is without a moral compass, without maybe spiritual guidance, we're all vulnerable and open to falling into this precipice? Would you say that? Or again, in regards to the trauma that you'd experienced from leaving home and coming here, and again, because we've been on the program where we deal with like effective parenting, now that you've had, that your life experience and what was lacking, again, I would say that from reflection on your lifestyle, you was moving with more affluent members within our own black society, which enable you to have certain privilege, which expose you to these higher A class, probably drugs and lifestyle at an earlier stage. So without those things, these are the skills which you're now bringing to the fore, which is going to be able to help us, the community. But I'd like for you to go back to a certain extent and tell us as to how maybe those things had impact, when you consider the development from young adult to, because there was that transition period, because I know you became a hardcore raver and all of those things, which on reflection it looked like you was having a good time. It's just that it took you into terrible places.
Absolutely. The fact of the matter is that even the raving and so on, my excuse for that was, I had a hard childhood. My father beat me nearly every day. The only time when he didn't beat me was when we had visitors. I used to pray that we'd have visitors morning, noon, and night so I wouldn't get a beating. You know what I mean? The only place I looked forward to going to was school. So from Monday to Friday was heaven for me. School was my heaven and my haven. And, and by the time I was thrown out and descended into a life of crime, having been denied my education because I was very bright, I was in the academic stream, I was always topping a lot of subjects and so on and so forth, also a good athlete. I was a Hackney boxing school champion and all that kind of thing, represented my school in many different sports and all that. I started singing with the band tracks at the age of 12 because I sang a poem. Instead of reciting it, I sang it, and I was invited to join a band and earn more money than my parents put together at the age of 12, just for singing an hour or two. And the fact of the matter is that, but the trials and tribulations I went through, and witnessing my mother getting beaten so regularly as well, but not as regularly as me, and so on, really and truly, You know, by the time I got out of that house, out of that situation, I said that I would party. I'm going to party every day. You know, because I was denied playing out. You know, my mother sort of gave me so many chores. She'd tell the children to go away from the door, is not coming out. You know what I mean? As the sun is blazing like that out there, as I'm indoors, having to work from upstairs and downstairs. We have this 3-story house and a big garden. I've got to do gardening and God Almighty, all sorts of things, you know what I mean? I'm grateful for the experience today because it helped me to look after myself when I left home and when I was thrown out of the house, really. But it helped me later on in life. But really and truly, the fact is that I was dishonest with myself. So I kept repeating the same thing, going out every night to these nightclubs as a teenager and so on, saying I'm making up for my lost childhood, for the fun I didn't have. I'm going to have it now. And that led me down the wrong path.
Yeah, another thing I picked up on is the regrets that you was expressing in the book, because not being around the kids, and then when you were around the kids, not being able to demonstrate yourself then as a model, because you are still under the influence of these addictions. But the love, no doubt, for the children kept shining through and through. And then even towards the end, I think you mentioned that you even did a performance with one of your sons in the latter parts. Which
Yes.
So it indicated, though, you tried to keep hold, but how were you able, and where are you now with a lot of your children, and there must be grandchildren and that out there as well?
Yes, indeed, we have grandchildren. There's 6 grandchildren, and my relationship with my sons and daughters is still work in progress. You know, it's still a healing process that's going on. It's not an overnight thing, although I haven't drunk and taken drugs and all that for 17 years now, but the forgiveness, the process of forgiveness, the healing still continues. Just because they say, Dad, we forgive you because you abandoned us as children and rather spend your time in a crack house and all that sort of nonsense and chasing women and all that kind of stuff instead of being with us and so on. You know, we forgive you, but they're still having to, how could you say, embrace that forgiveness. They're still having to adapt to that forgiveness. They're still having to grow into that forgiveness because it takes time, but they are willing to forgive me, you know, and they were ready to forgive me, and so it's helped. So therefore it's made it easier for us to communicate with each other, and that is, like I said, work in progress. I realize because as an absent father, I don't have the kind of influence on their lives like I would have liked to have had. And at the same time, I remember consciously saying to an ex-wife, well, the only woman I ever married, and I said to her, when the children are 4 years of age, I'm going to... No, I didn't say when they're 4 years of age. When they know me as their father, I shall leave it, because it was such a very unhappy marriage, lack of love. And to be honest with you, I saw myself committing murder and setting the house on fire and all sorts of things like that. And even the constant arguments, which were never initiated by me, you know, no excuses, but they certainly weren't. I realized I'd married the wrong woman from day one, the same day I married her. And I was going to leave her 2 months later because I saw nothing has changed. But because she said she was pregnant, I stayed. And but it was a very strained and stressful time, and there's no point bringing up my children in an atmosphere where mother and father don't get on. I believe in children being brought up in a loving atmosphere, under loving conditions, harmonious conditions, you know. And to tell the truth, it broke my heart, and all that sort of stuff led me down the path of depression, actually, and a lot of pain. because I could hear my children's voices calling me saying, "Daddy, Daddy." And, and I would just take more cocaine and drink more alcohol and smoke more crack to try to get rid of these voices that I could hear, baby voices, calling out for their daddy. I cried, for God's sake. I cried about it. Yes. And I remember one woman who was with me as a partner at the time, she said, "What are you crying about?" I said, "My children, I miss them." And really so, although they thought I was hard and cruel and done this and that, but I was in pain. I suffered for my actions. It's like I cut my nose off to spite my face.
Yeah, but at the same time, not being in a position to offer them the alternative to the present, which was dysfunctional in home.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not being able to afford them that environment which is safe and conducive, which you'd say for their own personal development. But it's a situation, I believe, that in your absence, it left a void.
Yes.
But that void afforded them some safety, if I'm to interpret it, because the
Well,
relationship being as such that if you could see it was going to be violent, the last thing you want your kids to be in is an environment where there's violence.
Absolutely, and the fact of the matter was that when that void that I left behind, actually, I believe in many respects, well, I felt a lot of regret about that, because what happened was that their mother only filled that void with drug addicts and alcoholics, and who she happened to like, but somehow she never seemed to get on with me. She never liked me. I don't know why we got married in the first place. I was asking, "Why did you marry me?" And all the rest of it. And so therefore, really and truly, I found that my children were now endangered, because even when I took drugs, I made sure that I'd go away from the house, or I'd wait until they were in their bed and stuff like that. But these guys, that moved into their mom's lives, they were just taking drugs in the lounge, in the anywhere, anywhere in the house, and they actually how could you say, they enabled their mother. They made her a hostage, and she got onto drugs as well, and alcohol and so on. And when I knew their mom, I respected her for the fact that she wasn't taking drugs, and she was a teetotaler, really. Yeah. And I thought, well, this is a woman I need to marry, or I don't mind marrying, because maybe I can come off the stuff, with her as my wife, because she doesn't do what I'm doing. But so everything reversed. It changed,
Okay, right. Well, so we've come forward, 17 years has gone from what had been said.
Yes.
Insofar as the foundation now, because we're now dealing with what your experience has enabled you to do now to make a difference back in the community, seeing as a parent like myself, where we had somewhat failed our children, because we are more conscious of the failings now that we've been doing the effective parenting
yes.
as an example. Now we now need to look back as to what difference are we going to be making out there in society. Again, you the listeners, you've been listening to some heart-wrenching situations that my brother has cared to share, and he's put it in writing, that you can actually look and digest for yourself, and to see as to how you can find this inner strength. So, where is it? What help, what support are you therefore looking from us as a community, given the life skills you've acquired? Given that we know there are numerous people out there who might not have experienced all that you've experienced, but have had some experience of the journeys that you've gone through. What is it now that you want to be putting back in society, and why is it you want to be helping us at this stage?
Yes, well, I made a conscious decision from rehab that I would like to help those who are in drug and alcohol addiction and violence and crime, because suddenly I found myself in a place where I now had the tools of recovery, and I needed to share those tools of recovery with as many people as possible. And so even from the time I was in rehab, I actually wrote my first song for an album, and that song was called "The Walk of Shame," you know, and actually I was supported on the recording of that track by a generous, loving man from Alcoholics Anonymous who heard of my intentions and said, well, he'll help me to do that because he knew I needed support at the time. And another 4 songs after that followed. You know, it's been a very deep desire of mine to help as many people as I can, and I thought through music and through poetry, and now through this book, I hope to do that by showing them, look, listen, you know, although you fell down, you know, you can always rise up again. You know, we just got to be honest with ourselves. We got to start loving ourselves. We got to realize that there is a power greater than ourselves, not just out there, but in here, in us. You know, in us. We have to focus on the power within us, because it's that power within us that created the moon and the stars and the sun and the earth, wind, fire and water, people, places and things, all creatures great and small, visible and invisible. You know, was created by that higher power that is within us, our higher self. You know, as the lower self, well, you know, which is also a part of us, but we've always pandered to that, and that's where we get in trouble all the time.
Yeah, so within the music, did you actually release anything in the way of music?
Well, I only performed some of those tracks live in certain performances that I did with a charity that I helped I was a founder member of that charity called 24/8 in Camden Town, which were promoting well-being, you know, mental well-being right throughout London, and we did a lot of performances, you know, music, you know, poetry and dance, all different places, and also it was to erase the taboo that surrounds mental illness, because when you say, oh, we're gonna have an event, you know, on mental illness and so on and so forth, and we're gonna have mentally ill people performing. You know, a lot of people will be afraid of coming and think they're gonna you know. But the taboo from that fear is erased when they meet someone like you and they say, but Clive, I didn't know you were mentally ill. You're going through depression right now, or you're suffering from bipolar, or you're schizophrenic, but you're well dressed, you got a wife, you got children, you look together and all that, but you're schizophrenic or a bipolar or whatever it is, or you're a gambling addict, or you know, something like that, or maybe a sex addict, you know, and all that sort of thing. You know, and so we get to realize, well, these people who we were afraid of as being mad people, they're just like us, they look like us, they act like us, and so on, and also they're highly talented, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, and again, I think this week is in fact Mental Health Week. Apparently.
Mental Health Week? No, I understand it's next month.
Oh, it's next month?
Yes, it's next month.
Okay, but
yes.
I think it's a case where we feel disturbed on a daily basis anyway, so I mean, who is to define your state of mind?
Absolutely. The thing is, what I got to understand about mental health is that when I get angry, it's my mental health is in trouble, because I'm no longer balanced. I could end up murdering someone or doing something that I'll regret. You know, could end in jail, institutions, or death. You know, when I'm impatient, that's also a mental health issue. People have embraced these things like as though they are normal, or what they call these are, you know, these are the way that we really are. This is the natural way to be, but it really isn't. We've become so corrupted that we accept impatience as being all right. It's all right to get angry. It's all right to get violent at times. Like I said about that beating as a child there, I just, in on reflection, I don't believe in child beating for anything really, but I do believe that that saved Neddy Joe's life and mine, because it never ever happened again. Because I really would have gone up that mountain again and again and again. I'm telling you, because I really enjoyed that thrill, you know. But coming back to this again, the mental health, you know, people don't realize that when I'm intolerant, it's a mental illness. When I'm fearful, it's a mental illness. When I'm anxious, it's a mental illness. You know, all these states are, when I'm judgmental, it's a mental illness. These things are all mental illnesses. These are all ego traits. And the ego is anti-God. It's edging God out. That's what ego means. Ego tells us, yes, it's good to find love, but when you follow the ego, you never find it. Yes, let's make peace, but you never make peace. And this is why we know ego is running the world, because they're always talking about a better tomorrow, but it never comes, because we're not listening to the higher self. Ego is trying to cut off our connection with our higher self, so that we don't listen to our higher self and we listen to the ego, and we're forever going around in circles like that. Insanity, that's what it is. Insanity. We've been doing the same thing in this world over and over again, and we're expecting a different result. Wars after wars after wars. And look, we're still, things are getting from bad to worse, brother.
Yes, most definitely. Okay, so again now, we're at with regards to the launch, then say officially of this what's it, life story.
Yes, my life story, autobiography.
Autobiography. Yeah. So from this autobiography, given that we're saying now it's going to be successful, what is the aim? Where do you want for us to be consciously, say, another 2 years down the road from here? Because,
well, consciously, I'd like us to love ourselves, love our Creator, love ourselves, because without loving ourselves, we cannot love each other. Because I cannot give you any money if I don't have any money for myself. I cannot give you any strength if I don't have no strength myself. So really we have to love ourselves, and in order to love ourselves, we have to love our Creator. We have to recognize that there is a power greater than us. We see a plane flying above there, we know, that airplane is made by BOC or whoever they are. You see a painting on the wall, that's a Dali. Well, when we look at the sun, moon, and stars, we know, that's God's creation. You know what I mean? His signature is in these things. So we have to start to, and not only out there, but in ourselves, we have to recognize, look at that. The higher power in me causes me to see. I can hear. I can feel. I can taste flavors, different flavors, differentiate between them. I can smell fragrances. I have a sense of humor. What a great creation that is. I didn't do it myself, and it wasn't my mother and fathers who did it either. They were created by the same source. Okay. And that source is love, a God of love, of creation, not destruction, a God of the living and not of the dead. We chose death. Just like I chose death when I chose drugs and alcohol as my God. I replaced my God with drugs and alcohol, and I suffered the consequences for it. I replaced God with dishonesty and violence, and I suffered the consequences of it. And that's why I'm here to help others to turn it around. Because there's a lot of dishonest people who's never been to prison. But it doesn't matter. We become a prisoner of our own dishonesties, whether we got a criminal record or not. There's a lot of violent people that keep getting away with the violent things they're doing. It's all in secret. Everyone covering up for each other with all the shame and all that goes with it, and so on and so forth. And they just become prisoners of that too. So I'm here to just help us to, by the grace of God, because it's not me. It's only the God in me that's moving me to do what I am doing, because I cannot do it of myself, because of myself You know, I'm nothing. I cannot even make myself breathe on my own. You know, I'm breathing because the higher power is causing me to breathe. Every breath I take is by the grace of our higher power.
So life, no doubt, is far, far better now. It's more brighter. It's brighter now than the times in the past when you was in the sense of darkness.
Oh, absolutely. You remind me of a time for years. In fact, for I'd say a couple decades, because I was in this drug and alcohol addiction for 20 odd years, brothers and sisters. And I just felt, and I went through depression. And one doctor described it as chronic depression. And to me, it felt like as though I was in a black tunnel, pitch black, and I couldn't see no light at the end of it. No light at all. Even if someone says, oh, everything is going to be all right, don't worry, it didn't make any difference. I couldn't see no end to this thing here. I used to cry out to God. I used to go out of my house and climb over park fences and all that and hug trees at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning asking God, help me please, because I just couldn't do that in front of anybody. So the trees became my friend. This depression, I said, God, please take this away from me. Why me? Why am I going through this? You know, and somehow this depression led on to suicidal thoughts. You know, suddenly, you know, getting these thoughts that come along. I say, where these thoughts are coming from? To jump into the River Thames and all that at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. I remember one day I was there, I took off my suit, you know, and my everything down to my boxer shorts, you know, but I wouldn't jump in. I wrote a poem to that effect, you know. Yes, it was terrible. And then there were other thoughts about violence, you know, to kill and murder and all that under the influence of drugs and alcohol and so forth. I give thanks and praise to the Most High that I'm here today to tell the tale, and I just like to help people. Like I said, whether you're in drugs or not, we all have problems, or we all have members of our families or with friends who know someone who are going through these things that I'm talking about. And really and truly, we have to be honest. Even if you've been honest all your life, well, continue to be honest for the rest of your life. You know, if you've never had a drink before and you never gambled and you never beat your wife and you never beat your children, well, you know, continue to do that. You know, continue to do that, because this is what this book is always about as well. It's encouraging those who are doing it right to continue to do it right, because otherwise their children could end up like that, or they themselves could end up like that if they just think, I'm going to have a drink for one night because I'm fed up with this now, you know, and all that, holding it down. No, we just got to talk. You know, talk. I learned that talking is a wonderful therapy. It's a healing therapy. Talking the truth, actually. Talking the truth. You know, it's a wonderful way to recover, because it really helps to, you know, asking for help. You know, which is a thing that a lot of us are afraid to do. You know, us black people and people in general have a thing called pride, another ego trait. Oh, don't ask them for help. That's what happened to me as a 16-year-old, and I ended up committing a robbery instead of asking my grandma for the rent money I needed to pay my rent and to buy some food and so on, you know. Absolutely. So we really and truly got to be very, very, very careful, brothers and sisters, that that we don't slip into this this false sense of security, brothers and sisters. I've learned that we have to be vigilant, you know, because I've met people in rehab that never drank or anything until they were over 50 years of age and found themselves an alcoholic. I met one who was 70 odd years of age, you know, and he never drank until I think in his 60s, and found himself with a problem, and so on and so forth. So, brothers and sisters, it's here to point you all. It's here to just illustrate the dangers that lay ahead in case you decide to turn down that road. The book is also here, like I said, to encourage good parents to continue doing what they're doing, support your children with love, in their education and with their natural talents, their gifts from God. Encourage them. I was told, forget about that, being a poet, being a writer, being an actor, being a singer, all the rest of it. We must encourage our children in these things,
Yeah, and again, obviously, I myself, having started reading the book, it's a book which is, it draws you in further and further because I think this, for me, it covers for me the last 30 years from my youth coming here, like yourself, from the West Indies, and going to the parties, enjoying, socializing. Obviously, myself did somewhat different. I didn't get into the hard drugs. Fortunate for myself, my company wasn't as exclusive, I would say, as your company back then. But in winding up, where can we get? I know it's on Amazon. I mean, I just rush to yourself to get a signed copy,
Yes.
and it's on Amazon. And obviously, because of the social distancing at the moment, insofar as your launch, that's something in the near future, official launch,
Yes.
signing, book signing, things like that.
Yes.
You got those things in the pipeline.
Yes, we have plans of a book tour, as a matter of fact. We're going to do a book tour by the grace of the Most High. We have to be confident in what we're saying. We're saying it from the platform of spirit, from that place of spirit. We're going to do a book tour, and before that book tour, because we've got to wait until places are open and we can all gather in the same place. But before that happens, we've got an online TV book launch pending for the 13th of June. Saturday the 13th of June from 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. Yes, where we'll have people calling in. I hope that you'll be able to make it and call us on that evening as well. And referring to the book, of course, by then no doubt you'll have read all of the book. And also...
I think you'd mentioned it was online.
Yes, online TV, yes.
Okay, what about the book? There wasn't an e-book, or was there any, aside from the hard copy, there's paperback?
And there's the e-book, yes.
And there is an e-book.
There is an e-book
How
as
do
well.
they access that one?
Well, you get that from Amazon, and there's other online stores as well that you can get it from as well. And also you can get it from any bookstore. If they haven't got it in stock, just ask them for From Rehab to Life by Tamara Gabriel, and they'll get you a copy. It's available everywhere, basically.
Okay, yeah, well, that would be good because, again, we welcome those that would be able to read and to add to the scrutiny and also the lessons that we know that would have learned from it. And again, I must say that obviously I've been gotten to know Brother Tamara in the last year through Brother Dougie, knowing where his heart and his aspiration lies. We need something tangible that we can buy into, and it can make an impact within our society. So let me encourage you in order to make your contribution that way. In addition to that, my fascination with rehab relates to the fact that we have been on lockdown for the past 2 months, and we are in effect in rehab ourselves, and we've had to be dealing with each situation, whether we were in a harmonious relationship or one that was abusive. We've had to be tolerant of our household. So we're going through a period of time which we need to connect, and that society also have it that we can't congregate as we used to insofar as meetings. So we can't really make any good plans or real plans because nothing planned should be exposed and open as it presently is. But for the time being, we do need to communicate amongst ourselves.
Yes, we need to communicate honestly because during this coronavirus period, a lot of lies are going around. It's you don't know who's telling the truth, who's lying. Even now, people are all confused, and confusion emanates fear, and there's people in fear everywhere, whether they're wearing a mask or not. And the fact of the matter is that, brothers and sisters, we have to be careful. Some people are saying this and that, blah, 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 and going into denial about these masks and so on, or probably even if you deny the mask, then you probably also deny washing your hands. One thing leads to another, and next thing you know, you got the coronavirus like my brother's wife. I just found out a couple days ago she contracted it, celebrating her birthday, with her friends, and so on. And she invited my brother, into the party, and he said to her, "You must be joking." He said he's got MS, and also he had a prostate cancer operation as well, and his immune system is very low. He's always fighting to keep his immune system up to certain strength. And he said no way, he kept far away from them as possible. He didn't contract it. He even had to go and get a test to make sure that he didn't get anything. But she's got it, and she's struggling at the moment for the last 3 days now with this coronavirus business, which affects the breathing and so on. I've met other people who survived it, and they've told me the experience is like as though you're a fish out of water, and you can feel you can only gasp for breath. Suddenly, you can't even breathe again. You're gasping. And a lot of people lose hope at that point, and they go under. And some of us, because we have the spiritual strength, because we connect with our higher power, we're here today to tell the tale. That's the difference between, being a spiritual being, and being just a physical being. We're all physical. But the fact is that if we only focus on the physical aspect of our being, then, we're prone to die, a lot easier and a lot quicker than when we're connected spiritually as well, to have that balance of spirit and body and mind, in fact.
And the mind, yeah, most definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're at a stage now where I think they're lifting the lockdown.
Yes.
I think we might be fortunate, even as early as this week. I think we're allowed in the parks.
Yeah.
And we will know more when the pubs are open.
Yes.
And even the football stadium.
Yes, indeed. And something, it's a time to embrace these things, because a lot of people don't use the parks, and now you can realize, suddenly you realize you can appreciate the things that we had before more. I think we ought to come out from the lockdown appreciating things that we been doing before, getting our shopping when we want, going in the park when we want, going anywhere when we want, and things like that. That freedom, that's that sense of being organized and so on, and being connected, the infrastructure and all that, so that we can go here, there, and everywhere. These things are to be appreciated, brothers and sisters, because there's part of the world where people have to walk miles for water, and things like that, and we have everything laid on. We don't even have to. In fact, a lot of people during lockdown had their groceries delivered and things like that, and so on and so forth. But the most important thing is what we're going to do, like you were saying, coming out of the lockdown. Well, of course, don't we want to be better people than what we were before? And this is the time to rehabilitate our mind, to rehabilitate ourselves spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially. Where we were wasting money, don't waste it anymore. Spend it on our children or whatever.
Yeah, and again, obviously, we have to also reflect on the fact that we've lost our brother Dougie, and you're occupying the hot seat, and what he was aiming towards, and the fact that he had brought so many of us together as a collective.
Yes.
Now that we've had the time to reflect, because you could say he's gone too soon, but he's left a legacy where we're duty bound, then say, to see the relay or the race being continued. So this is part of the rehabilitation. How is it that we're going to come forward out of this stronger, more collective, more conscious? All of these things, because we've been put in this position for a reason.
Absolutely. You know, you find when people are locked up in prison together, they get really close. You know, suddenly they become friends. You know, you're in this. Some of us, we didn't choose to be. We're banged up in a cell with somebody, or anyway, we're in the prison compound, and you find that people get really. You know, you come together. We come together under pressure, just like this lockdown has caused us to come under pressure. Now let us come together when this pressure has passed. Let us stay together. Let us not return back to the ways where we don't talk to our neighbor, where we only think about me. You know, let us continue to think about things so, you know, in a social community aspect, you know. Indeed, brothers and sisters, community consciousness, you know, let's keep it going.
Yeah.
You know, and this is a thing that Brother Dougie strongly promoted, which is love and unity in our community. Harmony, we need that. We need, in order for us to grow and go forward as a community and individually.
Okay, yeah, again, so what else can it take, or what more is it going to take more than our present situation with our backs being against the wall to prick our consciousness for us to come and realize that when you look on the hostility that has been put towards us over the past 400, 500, 600 years and more, what is it that it's going to take for us to realize that we've got a duty, a responsibility to a certain extent, manage this world, which is our environment, because Western society are very good at exploiting and destroying, polluting, and we, through our natural nature and our oneness with our environment, need to step up to bring back those moral compasses which generally deals with our spirituality that links us with our earth.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. You know, we need to return to our basic principles of, you know, having a meal together as a family around our table. We need to return to the principles of having a day off every week. You know what I mean? I call it the Sabbath, but for other people who don't celebrate the Sabbath, you call it family week. Whatever it is, that day off. You know, stop running down money and all that. Talk to our children, our wives and so on, our girlfriends and our families in general, our friends in general and so on. Have a day off, brothers and sisters. Keep a balance, because what's happened is that this 24/7 running down money hasn't worked, brothers and sisters. It hasn't worked. It's led us to a place where we have children now running down money and murdering each other over money. I mean, they say, I've got my grandson just last week. He was mugged. He's 13 years of age. They mugged him for his phone and his bag. You know, and but he got back the phone, but they took the bag. They had a knife, but they didn't use it on him. Thank God for that. So he was spiritually protected on that occasion, like that, you know. And I'd like to think that I hope that some of that rubbed off from me, you know, because I do talk to them about God, about our Creator, and stuff like that. And yes, indeed. In fact, one of the boys, they were 17. 3 of them, and he's 14. So we can see the state of affairs we're in. So if we're all on this materialistic journey, you know, pursuing money, material things all the time, 24/7, making excuses that it's for our children, it's for, you know, this and that and blah blah blah. We must stop lying to ourselves, brothers and sisters, because we're setting an example to our children where now they've become so materialistic they don't want to wear nothing but Ralph Lauren and Gucci and things like that when they're just 10, 11, 12 years of age, 13 years of age. I know that because my grandson's been like that from he was an infant. From he was an infant, you know, he refused to wear anything unless it had that logo on it. You know, the Ralph Lauren logo, because that's all the stuff he wore as a baby. And so he's always, you know, everything had to have that logo on it, brothers and sisters. And so we've got to slow down, you know, we have to have a day out for ourselves and for our family, brothers and sisters. You know, set a better example, get to know our children, get to know ourselves, and develop our relationships with our community.
Yeah, and again, I would say you also go to the extent of creating our own brand. So if our children want to aspire to wear something which is of quality, or if it means something, let it be something that is coming from our African
Absolutely,
perspective
our
and
brand. This
and
is
again,
right.
even with this platform, with the radio as a medium, we need to look at how we as a collective use this platform so that we can support, as like with the success of your book, then say it's something that can generate so we can project and support the likes of a radio station like ourselves, because we haven't got the media to present that image on the level as to how Western society has done, creating their illusion, which has turned things upside down. So we have a lot which we need to do, but at the same time I'm open and that you'll be strengthening that seat to be able to take the spirit of our brother Dougie, coupled with your life journey. Because again, I say you have been prepared through all the trials and tribulations that you've been through in the bottomless pit and come back out. So it's not being of your will. So now, in acknowledging that you have come out of rehabilitation, you're now living life that you now want to share with our community in a manner that we can move forward with a moral compass. Because I say again, insofar as what you have been through, had you had that moral compass, you in most of those cases you would have been able to say no.
Absolutely, brother, absolutely. A moral compass is right. And that moral compass always boils down to honesty, brothers and sisters. We cannot recover from any situation without honesty. It's not happening. You know, we've learned to sweep things under the carpet, and we've learned to go into denial and run away. Or sometimes we hide behind anger. You know, when the truth comes up, suddenly a person will get angry. So that's their way of running away from the truth, because from they get angry, people don't want to talk to them anymore. They just, oh, it's okay, it's all right, oh, okay, let it be, and all that. You know, and that anger, that ignorance is keeping us sick. And the fact of the matter is, brothers and sisters, you know, like we know we're going to be coming out of lockdown, and we need to be ready for that transition. And in being ready, brothers and sisters, you know, we really need to be, like I said again, honest with ourselves. We have to do the right thing so the right things happen. You know, brother Dougie, as his thing, he always used to say, you good? You know, we have to be good people, brothers. We have to be good to ourselves. We cannot expect to sow apple seeds and get mangoes, brothers and sisters. You know, we cannot expect to sow drug and alcohol addiction and violence and crime in our community, and expect to have a better way of life, brothers and sisters. You know, we can only do that with love, and it's a word that a lot of us macho men and all that used to run away from, about love. We don't deal with love because love is soft, love is submissive, and you know, and love is a doormat and all that. No, love is the most powerful energy in all creation. In fact, without love, there's nothing at all. There's no world, there's no stars, there's no moons, there's no earth, wind, fire, and water. There's nothing without love. We're all created out of love, brothers and sisters. And there we are, fooling ourselves, running after little trinkets from Gucci, and little trinkets from Cartier, and little this and that from that, like as though they're the biggest thing on this planet, like as though I'm somebody because I'm wearing a Gucci suit or a Savile Row suit. I'm somebody, you know, naked. I'm somebody.
Right.
You understand? Right. And what better suit is there than this earth suit here, this fleshical suit here, you know, this design here.
character.
Eh?
A man
Yeah.
of good
You
character.
know, yeah, absolutely. You know, listen, you know, my tailor is God Almighty Himself. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and so therefore, brothers and sisters, we have to stop putting the cart before the horse and start putting the horse before the cart. And we got to start listening, being able to listen and take advice, brothers and sisters. This ignorance, I know it all, you know, you can't tell me nothing. It don't work. It's compounding our problems. You know, it's making our challenges difficult to overcome. You know, we overcome things through honesty. Some people think if the house is on fire, say, no, the house isn't on fire. And, you know, and everything will be all right. No, we have to say, I'm on fire. The house is on fire. You know, and because we've admitted that the house is on fire, we can put out the fire. But if I'm on fire and I'm saying I'm all right, you know, and then when I get burned down, people say, well, probably never know say it was on fire. You know what I mean? So, brothers, we got to be honest with ourselves and honest with each other. You know, this fear of what people will think of me. You know, like I went to prison, you know, because the judge said to me, if you admit you're a drug addict, alcoholic, well, we won't send you to prison, but we'll send you to rehab instead. And I was filled with so much fear for the public gallery, you know, to find out that I'm a crackhead, you know, a drug addict, you know, and an alcoholic. You know, I didn't too mind the alcoholic side because that was legal in the shops and, you know, it's socially acceptable. But, you know, the crack thing, I says, no, I can't admit to that in court. So, so he sent me to jail instead. I mean, this is how crazy I was. I preferred to go to jail and then accept the help that was handed to me. And there's a lot of us out there who are in similar challenges that I went through, and I'm sure a lot of your families are reaching out to help you all, and yet the matter just seems to be getting from bad to worse, you know. And to be honest with you, there are times when we just have to let go and let everyone find their own rock bottom, you know, so to speak, to turn it around, just like I had to find my own rock bottom, you know, absolutely. You know, and my rock bottom came when I no longer had any friends, no longer had any family, no longer had no one to talk to except the crack dealer and the alcohol seller. You know, these are the people who I talked to and socialized with. My world became very small indeed. And we don't need to go down that road, brothers and sisters, you know. So let us be united in ourselves, you know, in spirit, mind, and body. You know, let us submit ourselves to the truth, and the truth will set us free and be an example to our children. You know, we don't need to have our children growing up thinking that it's normal, it's a normal thing now to, when you leave school or while you're still at school, to sell drugs. You know, I can say that now because my grandson, he told his mother, well, if he can't get that thing that costs £200, he'll get it another way. And he was only, I think, 12 then. 11 or 12 then at the time. He's 13 now. And she said to him, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, he can, you know, do a little shotting of this. You know, he can become a shotter. I said, what? You know, because yes, we have our, you know, when I say we, you know, there's members in our community that have our children shotting drugs out there. You know, as mules and all that sort of thing for money. You know, where, you know, these children's lives are at risk in many, many, many different ways. You know, and really and truly, and it's not only just that. There's people out there have their children stealing, going out stealing people's wallets and purses and things like that. I found a child once upon a time with their hand in my pocket. You know, and I looked at the mother and I said, this is dangerous. If I was a different man, I could have picked up that child and threw him across, threw him, 10 yards away from me. Or I could have attacked you as well as the mother for allowing your son to come to try to steal my money out of my pocket.
I was wondering to myself if that was one of the things that might well have lulled a bit, given this crackdown, in that our youngsters were more confined indoors, so that they didn't have the opportunity to be doing these deviances. I'm just wondering if this lockdown had gone some way to cut down again on even the blood that was on the street. But then I'm hearing even in, I think Haringey here, somebody being shot this week. So
Yes.
all those things which I was hoping, it just appears to be just not newsworthy to a certain extent, because the focus was all on this CO-19. So yeah, without a doubt, we have been in rehab, and we are having to face how we're going to come out. I'm hoping that we're going to come out stronger as a community, as a collective, and that we will be able to afford you a platform where you can hear your voice. You know, you can certainly raise your voice, so that we are aware as to the concerns which are out there. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
where we're at, obviously, my brother Tamara is in the hot seat. He's opened up through his book to yourselves, the community out there. We're hoping that you will support, so that we can have a bestseller, because it is indeed worthy to be read. And then how of that, then we be able to use that benefit, financial benefit, then say, to give a focus to our needs, our aspirations, because no man is an island.
Absolutely,
and
bro.
we can't stand alone.
Absolutely, I agree totally. All proceeds from this book goes to the Charity From Rehab to Life Foundation, aiming to steer the youths away from drug and alcohol addiction, violence and crime, aiming to unite families, helping with the parenting. And that's why we have teamed up with the Godwin Lawson Foundation and things like that, strengthening families, strengthening communities. The fact of the matter is we need to spend our money with each other. We've helped to make all these people rich, and they're not going to help us. I saw a picture with the Pack and his Bentley or his Rolls Royce and all them getting these, we're just, people are prospering off of us, and yet we are suffering. Brothers and sisters, it's time for us to start circulating the money amongst ourselves. Support this book, so that we can support you. We're here to support you. Whether or not you support this book, we're still here to support you, brothers and sisters. We're not going backward into those dark days there. We're here to support you, whether you're supporting us or not. And we hope that one day, by the grace of God, because we need your support. We need your support, because we cannot do it alone. As a community, we can achieve anything we imagine together, collectively. Banks, buildings, amenities for the children, all sorts of things that we need in our communities. We can provide that ourselves, because we have the financial power. We're worth a lot of money. We are indeed, but all our wealth is going into other communities rather than our own community, brothers and sisters, and we need to spend it with each other. Support each other.
Yeah, 100%. We need to support each other. In addition to that, we also need to establish amongst ourselves what I would consider like membership. We have to buy in into our own selves in what we provide. And so I would say that, particularly from the perspective of Concept to Us, we're producing T-shirts, which we've got a number of. And we're not wanting to sell them for the sake of selling them. We want for you to be buying something tangible that you can use to identify yourself as a collective. So I'm encouraging you also to do likewise with Rehab to Life. Yeah, we need to be pooling our resources together as a collective and to be able to demonstrate that in a tangible way. So if you've got hold of the book, which again my brother is happy to sign, then it's something we can use as a reference, we can use inside the house as to how it's possible to, out of bad, come a good situation. And insofar as real active structured supported solutions are concerned, you're aware as to the acronym when you look at it, what it represents, but we also know within our culture it represents enough is enough. So we're in a situation where on one hand we are saying enough is enough, but because we cannot see the dangers which has been perceived to be out there, we have to be mindful as to how we move. So we need to be moving with cautions, but we need to be moving as a collective. It is truly my belief that Africa is calling, but if we're not conscious to recognize, then we're still going to be in a state of rehab where they confine us.
Absolutely, brother. And before we go, this is what's written on the back of the book here. It says that whether in or out of trouble, please say this serenity prayer on a daily basis. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will be done, not mine. Yes, brothers and sisters, that little short prayer there can keep us sane for the day, can keep anger at bay, can keep temptation at bay, give us the strength, to live another day and to a better day. Because that's what kept me going, brothers and sisters, that prayer. I said it many times for many days, all day long, just to keep me away from drink and drugs or from murdering somebody or, all sorts of negative things that would come along my way. So blessed love to each and every one out there. And remember, we need your support to support you, because we need to pay counselors, therapists, mentors and volunteers and psychiatrists and all sorts of people, teachers and so on. And so therefore, we need your support, brothers and sisters. We need your support. We cannot just rely on government support. We need to support each other. And this is why we've got a book here that you can buy. Like Taras has got T-shirts and so forth as well to the same thing. And there's lots of other things out there. Not only, there's support all black businesses out there, brothers and sisters. Please. And let's make a change for the better.
Yeah, I would like to say finally, if you want to be in touch with Taras, then you need to be contacting concepttaras@gmail.com. And we'll be happy, obviously, to establish our link and ways of moving forward. Yes, so know thyself and stay blessed.
Blessed love. Yes, and if you need to get in touch with From Rehab to Life Foundation, our charity, please, you can get in touch on FromRehabToLifeFoundation.org. Contact there, or you can call me personally on 07960 976 920. You may not have money to contribute, but if you've got a skill, a counseling, you can devote a few hours a week to helping us with our challenges out there, with our people with their challenges out there. Please get in touch. Whatever, we need your advice. We need you to tell us what you would like to see done in our community, because this is about action, brothers and sisters. We need to take action. Love one another, brothers. Blessed love. Peace be with you all.
Bless.